Welcome to this evening's discussion around self-sabotage. Whether you are aware of it or unaware of it, we undermine ourselves constantly. So where does self-sabotage come from? It comes from and is deeply rooted in our subconscious, like everything else. And what happens is we develop this in our early childhood between the ages of 2 and 7. And this is the time that our brain is like a sponge, just soaking everything up. But it interprets what is happening in our environment, right? So without the developed skills of critical thinking, which we don't have at that young age, we don't know what's really going on. So we're believing everything. So when we're absorbing all these stuff in, what we feel is what we believe and what we become, and that's what happens. And this is only reinforced throughout our lives, through our experiences, our environment, and our emotional conditioning. It's just another way of our mind using it as a coping mechanism to protect us, to use it as control, and for us to stay in that familiarity, right? Because the brain loves familiarity. So if I look at early childhood conditioning, if you ever felt like that you were only loved around certain conditions, right? So you'd only get love or attention based off of your performance. So if you got good grades in school or you're good at athletics, then you got attention. And if it was to your parents' liking, that was even better, right? Or you can look at it could be based off of achievements. You're winning awards, all these different accolades. So you may have grown up thinking that you are not worthy unless you meet one or more expectation for your parents. And if we look around the subject of fear, rejection, and failure, any experience of punishment, shame, neglect can create a belief that it's better and safer not to try, okay? It's better to just fail and to disappoint, okay? Because you're too afraid to go out and to try something. So your belief is, because of that shame, punishment, and neglect that you may have experienced, that you're not going to try. It was just safer to stay within that little box, right? Just to protect yourself. But my most interesting is that model behavior, which I believe most of us end up coming more into this category. So imagine if you had one of your parents and they put themselves last all the time, they downplay their success, or they lived in survival mode. So as a child, you may have internalized this, and then you end up repeating that pattern later in life because you believe this is how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to give of yourself constantly. You're not supposed to push yourself towards success. And again, you downplay that, or you're in survival mode, depending on what happened within that environment for your parents, and you've taken on that as well. But the thing with the subconscious mind is it develops these beliefs, a belief that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve success, love, or happiness. And if you shine too loudly, so if you show off your success, you're afraid you may be abandoned, right? That nobody's going to like you. And this one I love because I can't slow down. Because if I slow down, I'm going to fall behind. And if I fall behind, I'm never going to catch up with everyone else. So again, trying to help yourself feel more worthy, you have to keep on that constant gerbil wheel and stay in fast mode ahead of everyone else so you aren't left behind. And these beliefs become embedded in our subconscious and they run our lives. They can lead to procrastination, overeating, people pleasing, or keep you in an unhealthy holding pattern. So what I found really interesting around this, and to look at it as far as overeating, I sort of focused on that because I didn't find that overeating was part of self-sabotage, but it actually is. And the thing is that it absolutely makes sense because what our body is trying to do is trying to regulate itself, right? In our nervous system. When you feel overwhelmed, you're uncertain, stressed, bored, lonely, have fear of success, then you turn to food because it's familiar and you know it's a quick way to feel good about yourself. If I've been stressed, I'll turn to food and it does make me feel good. But it's again, that's that comfortable and that feeling and that warmth that you get from that. And we know that the brain needs familiar even if it's harmful for you, it needs to be in that environment, because the brain's main goal is to help you survive at all costs. And this is why we can self-sabotage good things for ourselves, because they're unfamiliar, and this equals unsafe to the subconscious, right? So we're not going to do anything new because it's unfamiliar, then it means it's unsafe. So it's better for you to say, unfortunately, if you're in an abusive relationship, this can happen. Why people stay, because it's what they know. And if they step out, they don't know what's going to happen outside of that environment. And when we have unprocessed emotions or trauma, the body creates protective ways. And if you haven't acknowledged it or healed from it, this can be, you can push people away, you can downplay your dreams, and you constantly create stress in your life, more stress than usual. Also, you can avoid feeling vulnerable. So what's next, right? How do we move past self-sabotage? First, know that self-sabotage isn't an enemy at all. We all have faced this. It's a sign that your younger self still doesn't feel safe and that you feel a sense of lack of self-worth. And it's time to rewire, which you can do, your brain through conscious awareness, inner child work, and regulating your nervous system. And so I always like to pull out the journal, because this is a time to reflect and journal. It's so important to ask yourself these questions. So I have different categories and questions that I think would really be good and helpful to work on that inner child, and to become more aware of, or if you are, self-sabotaging different goals or dreams that you may have, or your success in life. So what do you notice of yourself, okay? What do I notice of myself doing that blocks my growth, success, or peace? So that could be procrastination, maybe you overcommit, or maybe you have self-doubt that's way out of control. Okay, so what do I notice about myself? What are the blocks for my growth, success, or peace? And another one might be, what part of me is trying to protect me, right? What is trying to protect me? What am I trying to protect, right? Is it fear of failure, judgment, abandonment? What are you trying to protect? What is the self-sabotage trying to do? And then the last one on this one is, if self-sabotage had a voice, what would it say? And let the words flow, right? Just try to go back to that childhood when you were younger, and let the words, or whatever it is, the sentence just come out, or the paragraph. Just let it flow naturally. Just try to connect more with the soul instead of the mind and all those thoughts that may be ruminating. So a little bit more deeper inner child healing questions may be around, when in my early life do I first remember feeling unsafe, unworthy, or unseen? And again, I want you to let those words flow freely, not to have to concentrate on that, but just to kind of, the first memory that comes up for you. And then, what did I need to hear or feel as a child? I think that one's a huge one. Like, what did you need to hear or feel as a child? And remember, as a child, between that age of 2 and 7, we were like sponges, and we absorbed everything around us in our environment. Everything was happening. And what were you feeling at that time? And then, how can I give that, what you felt or heard, how can you give that to yourself now as the grown, wise woman that you are? And some empowering questions that you can ask also are, what would it look like to take one small step for myself? And I mean small, towards that goal, a dream, a new job, a position, or even something that you may be afraid to do. Maybe there's somebody in a store that you knew or you were interested, but you're afraid to go in that store because you know they work there. What if you just went one small step, went into that store, just stepped into that store and then came right back out? And that's one small step that you could do there. And then what am I afraid of will happen if I succeed or feel good? So look at the fears around visibility, change, or deservingness. And then what belief do I have around this pattern? And is it true? Right? So I want you to challenge your thoughts. Are they true? Okay. Then the last question is, what does your soul, okay, say to your mind that your mind keeps forgetting? What does your soul say the mind keeps forgetting? Do you have any questions or something you may want to share?
Can you publish these questions with your show notes that you have?
I can. What I will do is I will put them in on the replay. I will put those in and have all the questions in there. Does that work on
Thank you.
Facebook? On the
Yes,
private?
they're,
Yeah, to
I
do
don't
that.
know. Let's just check because those are really good questions to write out and journal and think about.
Yeah, it is a lot. And this is really where it more comes around, too, is asking yourself and doing that inner work, right? And it could be, again, obviously it's all from your childhood, as I said, because your subconscious absorbs that. It's the same as tonight, right? So all of everything we're saying, we're absorbing that all in, it's all being recorded in our subconscious. But what I find interesting, and I don't know if you did, is that we all know we're sponges, but the fact is we need to learn so much as a child, but yet we don't have that important critical thinking piece. And that's what's missing, because if we did, we'd be able to understand why we feel or felt the way we did at that time, right? So these questions definitely are important. And thank you for saying that, because I'd absolutely love to share them. And I think just each day taking one question, and maybe even just for a week, depending on, where it brings you and things like that. And I also, if you'd like, I actually could send these to you as well.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll put
So
the question. Go ahead.
another thought is so you all of this between 2 and 7, and
Yeah,
me. Um, so my kids are all grown, and your kids are all grown.
yeah,
So we can't help our kids per se, but like the grandkids, we could help nurture or cultivate them.
absolutely. Yeah, 100%. But I believe that we can't go back, of course, like I said, our kids are grown, but we can now, and I have done this before, because I know patterns of myself where how I was as a young adult, as a mom, and now I'm nothing like I was, right? I've healed, I've learned, and I mean, healing's a never-ending journey, but still, I've seen a pattern back then that actually I carried on because I actually was modeling a lot of my mother's behavior, and I saw that. But what you can do for your grown adult is if you recognize that and maybe you modeled certain behavior, you could talk to them now about that and hopefully have them become more aware of it and be able to work on themselves if they're open to that.
Yes, great idea.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions, or are you good, or
Nope, I'm good.
great? Super. So I will definitely share those questions with you. But it's really, so the eating, I found, like I said, very fascinating. I did a little bit more research on that because I had no clue that eating could even be part of self-sabotage. But you have to think the body knows what you need. And if the mind is telling you or sending signals, right, that you're unsafe or you are feeling lonely or overworked or what have you, or overwhelmed, that you need that comfort, right? You need to be able to feel good about yourself. And so it's a very common theme, right, to turn to food, because it's going to help our nervous systems and our body relax. But in turn, obviously, it's another underlying issue that you need to work through. And I know for myself, I've turned to food, like I said, I used to know the offices at work where I could find candy when I was highly stressed because I'm like, I need a piece of candy and I need it now. It's just, and for that quick second, it gives you that, calm and that peace, but it's really so short-lived. It's more of figuring out how to deal with that stress. And it's the same as the self-sabotage. How do we deal with that, right? So by doing these questions, rewriting your story and understanding that we all have this, and it's not something that is bad, because it's not. It's just something we have to learn around, and we have to heal and become more aware and open about it. Would you say that you were aware perhaps of some of your self-sabotage, if you felt that you had any, or were you unaware?
No, 100% I'm aware all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you're talking about how you overachieve, where I'm the exact opposite. I don't even try because I'm going to fail anyway. So why should I even bother trying?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, but you definitely can have multi, patterns as well. So I found, like I said, the whole modeling thing, and I could look at my mother and see that she definitely had self-worth issues, and she always gave and gave because trying to prove her worth, right? And I definitely know I got that from her, and I can see that, which I've learned from and stuff like that. But I have moved past that fear and have more self-worth. But again, that's taken obviously years, right, to get to where I am. And Yeah, it's very interesting. But I feel like, I don't know if sometimes people definitely aren't aware of some of their sabotaging ways that they have. But I think with the questions and stuff like that, it can kind of bring it up as well and help out. So, do you want to do a short meditation, or how are you feeling?
Well, if you have
You
time,
good?
sure.
Okay, definitely. All right, super. Well, you are definitely in a good spot for it. So, nice environment. So, if you feel comfortable and you want to close your eyes, you want to ground your feet on the floor, on the ground, and palms facing up to receive all the light and energy to flow through your hands and body. And to take just a gentle breath in through your nose and release through your mouth. Let's repeat that again. Gentle breath through your nose and release through your mouth. Once you take in one more deep breath, this time a deep breath through your nose and release through your mouth. I want you to imagine that light is coming down through your crown chakra, down through your third eye, your throat chakra, into the heart center, where you feel warm and calm, at peace. And the light travels down to your solar plexus, into your sacral, to your root chakra, your pelvic bone, down your thighs and your calves, through your feet into the ground. I want you to imagine that you're a young child again, around the age of 5, and you're outdoors at the home that you lived in as a child. You're out in the yard. And your mother's sitting on a bench. And you walk over to your mother and crawl onto her lap. As a mother does, she wraps her arms around you and holds you close to her heart. You can feel her heartbeat, and that heartbeat ripples through your body. You have no worries. You know you're safe and loved unconditionally. You can do no wrong. You are a perfect being just as the way you are. The sun is shining down upon both of you. You feel that warmth on your body. Any sense of self or lack of self-worth, lack of self-love, loneliness, rejection, it's all gone. You know at this moment you are loved for who you are. You need not prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to control anything. You don't need to procrastinate. You don't need to feel like a failure. Because none of that is true. You, as a young child, are that sponge, taking in the love, the light, the peace, the happiness, the fulfillment, because you are enough. You let go of all those feelings that do not serve you. You are nothing but pure love. When you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. All right, and shut the recording off.